Okay, this video is about court cards. Evelyn asked about what do you do with the reversed court card. She still struggles with that. So if you've ever wished that you didn't get court cards, then this, I think, is a video for you. So we in a deck we have 4 suits: cups, home, love, family, relationships; batons, which represent energy and enterprise; swords, hardship and conflict and strife; and coins, money and values, right? Basically. And then you get the king, the queen, the knight and the page. Kings represent older people or people with experience. And kings are masculine, and the masculine goes out and makes things happen. Queens are also mature and older people, and queens respond to circumstances. So with a king, you just go out and do it. With a queen, you look at what's going on and then you make a decision about what to do. Knights are messengers. I know some people say pages are messengers, but they're not. Knights are messengers and they bring change. And pages represent young people, or people who are inexperienced, or people who are new to a situation. So we put together the king, the queen, the knight and the page in these different areas. Or maybe the king is good, let's say the king of coins, the king is good with money, or the king is good with emotions, or the king is good with using a sword, protecting and defending, or attacking if you need somebody to attack. It's a bit like if you're in a knife fight, then the king of swords is a good person to have. But if it's a marriage guidance session, then the king of swords is maybe not quite so appropriate. So you think about the question, because in a lot of ways it all depends on the question, and you put together the king or the queen, the knight and the page and what they represent along with the suit, and you've got a picture, you've got an idea, you've got a scenario that you can then decide whether it's good or bad, or whether you like it or you don't like it, or whether it's going to go in your favor or go against you. So, and then if the card is upside down, there's a glitch. There's something, either it's going to be delayed, or it's not going to work out the way you expect, or it's not going to work out the way you want, or the way you hope for, maybe. And ideally, as I go into this, I'll give you examples. But the other thing is, a starting point to remember is that court cards can represent situations and conditions, right? So let's say you've got a page. A page can represent a situation where people don't quite know what they're doing because they haven't done it before, maybe, right? It's a page, it's a newborn, a child who lacks experience and maybe lacks wisdom as well. Maybe their instincts are good, but they maybe don't know why they're doing what they're doing. So a page can represent a situation where people are inexperienced, or it's new to them, or they're new to it, right? So you get, I was thinking before about Graham Souness, who played football for Liverpool in Scotland and other teams, and he was a coach. But when he first went to Liverpool and went into the dressing room, he was a newcomer. Even though he was very good and experienced at what he did, he was still new to that particular team. So a page doesn't have to be somebody young or who's only a few years old, but it's just the idea that you've got, that you're new to a certain situation. You may learn quickly, you may learn slowly. And so a page upside down can mean you're new and you don't quite know how to deal with it. And maybe it's going to take you a while to get your bearings and understand what's going on so that you can then make quicker progress. So court cards can represent situations or conditions. They can represent other people who are involved in the question, right? So Am I going to get a promotion? And the King of Pentacles is there. So this can be the interviewer or the boss or the potential boss. So the King of Pentacles upside down, you don't like the look of the boss, or you don't like the look of the interviewer, or the interviewer doesn't like the look of you. There's some kind of disconnection going on between you and the question, or between you and the interviewer, let's say, with the King upside down. Or the King upside down can be somebody who isn't that competent, who they may have been at it for a long time, but they haven't learned anything. So, because some people get promoted beyond what they're capable of doing, and this can be the King upside down. You're talking about a king, but there's a problem, or there's something not quite right. And again, depending on the question, the not quite right part could be that the boss is a bad boss, or he doesn't know what he's doing, or he doesn't know what he wants, or he gives conflicting orders to different people. So a court card can be a situation or somebody else, but it can also be the questioner, and it can represent something that the question's meant to learn about. So with a page, you, the questioner, are going to be going into a new situation. So remember, you're new to the situation. Don't go in expecting to know everything immediately. It's going to take a little bit of time to get the hang of what's going on in that particular situation. And the thing, so what do you do when a card comes up in a reading? Sometimes you're sure, and because of the cards that have come up before, it makes sense that this king would represent the questioner, or this page would represent the questioner. But what you can say to the questioner is, here we've got the Page of Swords, right? So if it describes a certain situation, then it's this kind of situation where people don't quite know how to take charge, or don't quite know what's worth defending, what's worth keeping, and what's worth getting rid of, because there's a sword you can cut, right? So it can represent getting rid of stuff. But with a page reversed, let's say, people aren't sure what to get rid of and what to keep. Or maybe they're afraid to rock the boat, right? Because they don't want to have to use a sword. They don't want to have to defend themselves, as they would have to do if they have to justify a course of action, let's say. Forgot what I was going to say there. So, okay, so you say to the questioner, if this Page of Swords represents a situation, then it's this kind of situation. But it can also be other people that you're going to come into contact with. So they'll be inexperienced, they'll be new to the situation, and so they're going to overcompensate. You know how sometimes people, when they don't know what they're doing, they act as if they really, really know what they're doing, but everybody knows they don't. And so I think you can call that overcompensating. So they sort of do too much, or they go too far. I used to know a fellow in England, and he was very lonely, and he thought the way to get people on his side or to like him was to buy them drinks. So whenever we would go out sometimes, and he would tag along, and he would always buy everybody double drinks, and everybody knew that he was trying too hard. And that can be the situation with the Page of Swords reversed, something like that. So you say to the questioner, if the Page of Swords or this particular court card represents a situation, it's this kind of situation. If it represents a person you're going to come into contact with, it's this kind of individual. But if it's about you, then you need to learn to, let's say, figure out what's worth keeping and what's worth getting rid of. And the thing is, the question's going to know. And the thing also, sometimes it's all three. So rather than think that you, the reader, have to know, is it somebody else? Is it the questioner? Is it a situation? You don't. Because sometimes it's two out of three, or it's all three. So I think what you do is you tell the questioner the different possibilities it could be, and then it's up to them to identify later back in their life. It's up to them to identify which particular meaning of the card applies in the circumstance. So, let's say you've got, okay, I'll go, let's say the King of Pentacles is somebody who knows how to spend money, how to earn money. If you think of Pentacles as money, then the King is somebody, maybe it's a financial officer, chief financial officer in a company, right? So they're in charge of money, because kings are in charge as a way of thinking about it. They're the top dog, they're the top person, they're the head of the organization, the head of the department, the person who's in charge. But if it was upside down, then they ought not to be in charge, or they're in charge but they do a bad job, or they're in charge but they depend too much on other people. And again, depending what the question is, you would know better what to make of the King of Pentacles upside down. And if you've got the King of Cups upright, then somebody who's in control of his emotions, King of Cups upside down, they lose their temper for no good reason. They're all over the place, too emotional, over emotional. They introduce emotion when it doesn't belong. That could be something as well. So people are being logical and reasonable about a situation and how to deal with it. And then the King of Cups upside down throws in something that just upsets everybody, either because of what they say or a suggestion that they make. So kings, you get the idea. It's somebody in charge, somebody older. Could be the questioner, could be somebody else they'll meet. It could be a situation like with a king, who's going to make the final decision, or who's going to choose who wins. Let's say you've got different possibilities and somebody has to make a decision about, are you going to do A, B, or C? The king is the one who chooses A, B, or C. And maybe if it's a king upside down, they're going to choose A when they should have chosen B or C, but they're just going to make the wrong decision. So a king upright and reversed, a queen. Maybe with a queen, what you ideally the feminine responds to circumstances, but a queen upside down can be a person, male or female, who doesn't figure out what's going on first and then make a decision, or then give orders, because kings and queens can give orders as well. So with the king and queen upright, you give good orders. King and queen upside down, you give bad orders, or you give inappropriate orders or inappropriate instructions. Again, it depends on the question what you would say. The other thing is, when you do this kind of thing, this exercise where you think about what court cards might mean, write it down and then forget about it. Like Vinny said, thought is the opposite of flow. So you want to be in the flow with a reading because you're randomly picking cards and turning them over, and you want to be in the moment of the reading for that question at that moment. So you're not trying to remember things you thought 6 months ago, but 6 months ago you write it down and you forget about it. If it's appropriate, you're going to remember it. Your conscious mind or your subconscious mind is going to remind you of this thing that you thought 3 months ago. So you don't need to try and remember everything. If you try to remember everything, you're going to get in your own way. So don't. Think about it and then forget about it, and it'll come back when you need it, or it'll come back when it's appropriate. So kings and queens make things happen. Knights are messengers and they bring change. So a knight upside down can be the message doesn't get through, or the message is misunderstood. And this is where you can maybe talk about, let's say I say to you, I want to have a meeting tomorrow at 3:00, but text me first to confirm that you're going to be there. And then you say to the person, what did I just say? And they, with a knight upside down, they say, we want a meeting tomorrow at 3:30. but they forget that they're supposed to text you first to confirm it. And so with a night upside down, messages will go astray or they'll be misunderstood. So it's a good idea to check and to confirm or double check that people understand what's supposed to happen and everybody's on board with it. Because otherwise people will say they'll agree to something, but they weren't thinking about it and they weren't paying attention. So with a night upside down, check. And it can do so depending on the suit. The Knight of Cups, new romance, messages of love coming your way. The Knight of Cups upside down, you're expecting good news, but it's going to be delayed. So don't get your hopes up for tomorrow. Maybe it'll come next week, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. Or it's not going to happen as quickly as you want, or as quickly as you've been led to believe, maybe, you would say. Again, depending on the question. So knights are messengers, and they bring change. So with a Knight of Pentacles, Pentacles represents money, but it also represents values. So a Knight of Coins upside down can be like a disagreement with somebody about their philosophy of life, or about religion, for instance, or about politics, because religion and politics have different values, or different religions have different values and value senses. So with a Knight of Pentacles upside down, you can find that you disagree with or have an argument with somebody about politics or about religion or about how to spend money, right? Because maybe you want a big screen TV, but your partner wants a new dishes and cutlery, or the other way around. And then with the sword, you're dealing with inexperience and youth in the different areas. So the Page of Pentacles upside down, they're not very good with money, or they haven't had much experience handling money, or else they've just learned something new, Pentacles being values. So they've just begun to explore in a particular area. It could be somebody who is just beginning with the tarot, for instance. So it's a lot to learn, but they're just at step one, and they're having to adjust what they used to think to what they now think because of their study of the tarot. And the other so it can represent situations, it can represent people with different characteristics, different strengths and weaknesses. So maybe you look at a court card and you say, this particular card, the strength is this, the weakness is that. And because it's upside down, you're going to tend to see the weaknesses before you see the strengths. And the other thing is, the last thing I'll say is, we need other people in life because they teach us about us. So, if somebody does something stupid or does something you don't like, and you think, that was stupid, or I don't like that, I would never do that. That's one thing. That's one kind of state of mind. But if somebody does something stupid and you lose your mind and you get really angry and really hostile, and how can you do such a stupid thing? When you get really upset about something, that's a sure sign that you're not as intelligent as you think you are. Or that I like to give the example of driving, where you're supposed to come to a stop at a stop sign, and a lot of people don't. And 99 times out of 100, you see people not come to a complete stop at a stop sign, and you think, you're supposed to stop at a stop sign. But the 100th time when you get really infuriated that they didn't come to a stop, the indication, you're telling yourself by your emotional overreaction that your driving habits aren't as good as you think they are. And you're beginning to slip and make mistakes. So maybe you don't signal before you change lanes, or maybe you don't come to a stop, but you don't see it in yourself, so you see it in other people. So when somebody has an emotional overreach, so let's say you're talking with a questioner and they're telling you about this neighbor who's really, really annoying and you can't stand him and he's always doing this, that's a clue for you, the reader, to figure out the person needs to calm down. There's something about themselves and their own personality or their own habits that they don't want to admit to themselves. And so they see it in the neighbor, but really it's all about the questioner and their overreaction to what other people are doing. And that's what court cards can represent as well. So a reverse court card can be a situation or somebody you're going to meet, but it can also be about you and how you are not as whatever as you think you are. You may be, with Pentacles, you're not as good with money as you think you are. With Cups, you're not as emotionally stable as you think you are. With Swords, you've got a bad temper that you don't think you've got. And with Batons, you're a bit reckless, actually, but you think you're on top of things and steadfast and true and that kind of thing. So if a court card comes up and it's reversed, it can be a clue to you, the reader, to see what you can do to get the person to see that they're not quite, their image of themselves isn't quite correct, isn't quite accurate, and needs a bit of work. Because otherwise they're going to have arguments with other people, thinking it's the other person who's got the problem, whereas in fact it's their own self that has the problem. This is not always easy to do, but maybe you can slip in bits and pieces of wisdom for the questioner so that later they'll realize, wait a minute, I'm not quite what I think I am. I think that's all I have to say at the moment. So next I'm going to do something on numerology. It's kind of a continuation from decks and decks that don't have pictures on them. Then I think you need to use some kind of system of numerology. So I'll be back in a few days with that. But otherwise, in the meantime, that's 2 people have left comments and I've dealt with the comments on video this way. So I don't want to go back to the very beginning of comments. I'll try and see if I can deal with 1 or 2 up-to-date comments for current videos. Anyway, numerology is next. So if you've got questions about numerology, either leave them in the comment for this video or else email me directly and I'll put something together and ideally deal with all your questions about numerology. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and we'll see you in a bit. Okay, bye-bye.